This service is provided in high definition by freeconferencecallhd.com. There are 4 participants in the conference. The recording has started. Please announce yourself.
That's why you need to visit mainmilitary.com. Mainmilitary.com carries everything you need. Gas masks, fire starter kits, high-capacity magazines, chemical suits, military surplus items, and much more. Do you own a firearm? MainMilitary.com has a large selection of pistols and rifles suited for your needs. Are your local stores sold out of ammunition? Call or visit them today for prices on hard-to-find ammo and bulk ammo orders. You don't need to worry about having a military surplus store in your area because MainMilitary.com is the only store you'll ever need, all from the comfort of your computer. Visit them online today at MainMilitary.com. That's Maine, like the state, military.com.
Liberty's Garden.
Ourselves to blame. For even now as tyrants trample each God-given right, we only watch and tremble, too afraid to stand and fight. If he stood by your bedside in a dream while you were asleep and wondered what remains of the freedoms he'd fought to keep, what would be your answer if he called out from the grave? Is this still the land of the free?
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Evening Intelligence Report. I'm Mark Hornke.
I'm Larry Lawson.
One day closer to victory for all of our brothers and sisters, both on and behind the lines in occupied territories, southwest, north, northeast, and south. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to us on Libertytreeradio.4mg.com, Liberty Tree Radio on YouTube, a live stream, and we are on AM and FM micro stations, CB base stations, and Ultranet, Hallmark, and Golden Spike technologies east and west of the Mississippi, along with Alaska. Good afternoon and evening to all of our friends out there in Lower 49, including the great state of Jefferson, along with CONUS, the outlying two states, territories, and the clock, 8:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Larry, it was a perfect day today. It was medium temperatures. Couldn't ask for a prettier day. Got things done outside, still working right up until just before the program. In fact, I just transferred 4 volunteer tomato plants, which probably will be our tomatoes through the winter if everything goes the way it's supposed to. More on that in a minute. But meanwhile, what's the date? What's it like in your neck of the woods? What's jumping off the wall down there in the original West? Now the Midwest, of course.
Well, this is the 13th of October, 2020 AD. So I've got some volunteer tomatoes, too. Can you actually diddle the flowers yourself and get them to pollinate and have your tomatoes through the winter?
Well, as a matter of fact, last year I had, 6 of these that actually went very, very well produced. They were, 2 of them were cherry tomatoes. The other one was, I think, a Rutgers or something like that. And what's interesting is these are about, right now they're about an arm's length, I would, 4 arms length. They're still small, but they're between the elbow and the wrist, I would say, height-wise. Let's see, actually there's one cluster of 3, and you think out by the time I'm done. The big thing is, if you have fun with them, I've done this years ago, where I've actually gotten one to grow about, I'd say, blue juicing it to death, I would say was probably 12 feet long. I actually, well, longer than that by the time we were done, but unfortunately then it was executed. The plant actually ran down an 8-foot greenhouse table, came back along the other side of it, and then went up and over onto the next tier of the table, which was, another 3 feet high, and was continuing to grow. And I had plenty of dirt, all kinds of leftover stuff and fertilizer from everything else that was being, taken out because it was time. And it would have easily gone through the winter. As it is, it didn't quite make it the whole winter, and the greenhouse was eventually shut down with no heat, so it was not an if, just when it was going to end up eventually, kaputting on us. But the one interesting thing I've got this year, we're going to find out if we survive and we aren't shooting their arse in the next, month here and then sooner. I mean, after that, it could be any time. It could be sooner. It could be before the election. We have some 2-year-old Snapdragons, and I kept them in pots, and I put them in the sunroom. And between the Snapdragons and some of the other ornamental creepers and stuff that are supposed to be annuals, they're heading towards now their 3rd year, and each season, or I should say each summer, they have budded at least 3 times. And right now, even though we're in the middle of October almost, they're budding right now. These are some of the most aggressive, healthy Snapdragon plants I've ever seen. They're not a tall plant. They're a more of a brush plant, about 6 to 8 inches tall, and they get bushy. They get thick, and they're pretty. The bloom is about the size of your, from your tip of your thumb to your first knuckle, and they've done well. In fact, they've done well, kind of to a degree abused, because we got the cats, and they like to sleep in the pot sometime. So these plants like a little abuse, and they've survived 2 full seasons nonstop, where we kept them in the sunroom. I didn't even make any great effort to insulate these. I mean, they're in a good position, but still gets cold enough that it was, on the edge, if not at freezing. And they made it through all of that and came out the other end this season just going crazy. So
I've overwintered peppers before, and I've had small peppers that have grown through the winter, but tomatoes, I mean, if they got flowers, you've got no bees. I don't know if you can pollinate them yourself. Some people say you can with Q-tips or something, but, you know, it'd be nice to be able to do that. I have overwintered celery.
I think part of it is, like, right now, the ones that we have that are a little bigger have blooms, and we've still got insect activity. We still have even bees. And I leave these out typically as long as we can. Like right now, I feel, we're lucky we've got this weather we had today. So I wanted to get those up and in, at least into pots. And the peppers, now that's another one, just as a heads up for everybody. The peppers that I started late, but I started in the sunroom and under actual light, freebie green lighting that I got from down the road. Somebody was tossing out a bunch of, full spectrum. I think actually they're aquarium lights, but they're grow lights for all practical purposes. And the plants just went crazy. I got them to kick, because we're hitting them 24/7 with radiation. And those plants right now all have fruit on them. And I think I've got maybe 48 little pepper, the small pepper. They're like a little bead pepper, and then there's a little almost like a cayenne pepper. And all of those will go through the winter if we do it right. And like you just said, if you can keep them up. Big thing here again is I'm not making a great effort. It's minimizing. The idea is how much can I do with a minimal effort and a modified greenhouse. That's another thing that we haven't talked about a little bit. But the greenhouse that I put together is our standard PVC pipe. Ed's very familiar with putting these together. And we started working on these decades ago, and developed them one after another and went a little farther along. And eventually what we found is we can take the same PVC 1-inch pipe, use the same pattern they use for a greenhouse. Remember that each of the PVC pipes is 10 foot tall, right? Well, if you don't need a greenhouse, but you do need a Quonset hut, you take one box of vinyl siding, and one box of vinyl siding will do a 10-foot run from the bottom of the pipe all the way to the top. And basically what I built was a vinyl roof greenhouse. There was no internal structure. All there was the PVC pipe going, vertical, up and down. One crossbar, 6 feet off the ground internally, where I used quarter mock steel board channel, and screw that to the tubes to keep the upper part of the tubes at a uniform distance. But then once you put the vinyl in, and it interlocks and clicks together, and then you screw it to the PVC pipe. Guys, that thing, were it not for the tornado we had, the one had been up for 2 years in heavy snow. So improvised field housing or support housing, this would work anywhere. Now, the thing that presently the greenhouse that we have that I'm using and have used for more than a few seasons now, actually, is a combination of 3 cheap or throwaway products. Number one, the vinyl siding. For the north side, I didn't worry about trying to make it clear. You're not going to get that much lighter radiation off the north. It's oriented so the long side is, to the north and the south. And so I vinyl sided the north side, and I've insulated that. On the south side, I used hot tub panels, guys. The companies that are selling hot tubs, they take them out, they deinstall them, and they throw away. They actually have to chop them up and take them to the landfill typically. Now, there are some companies recycling them, but the outer panels typically are not saved. Here's what's cool. The outer panels, the older ones are wood in some cases, but if they're the polyvinyl, the material has so much IR protection in it that the plastic does not rot, it does not bead, and in fact, it'll last indefinitely outside. And what I did is I used that for the base panel, front and rear now, to reinforce on the inside on the north side, but on the south side, I did it on the in and the outside, just the height of one of those panels, which is about probably 30 inches, 32 inches, sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little shorter. And I made that a rigid panel that really strengthened up the design. I then made, using PVC pipe and 2x2, I installed the louvered window out of an old, again, all this is throwaway stuff. The 2x2s I picked up from, the same site where they have 2x2s for the new hot tubs coming in. They're about 8 foot and 10 foot long. Lots of material to work with. I used that to make my frames for the end. and we installed an old camper louvered window for ventilation on the east end. And on the other end, I have two de-installed other, windows and a full screen door framed in the same way, and then, of course, also insulated. Now, the base is 2x4 up to about 20 inches. I made a platform base. The windows sit on that and are framed in by 2x2 and by PVC pipe. And then I used for the ends the same hot tub plastic, wraparound shield plastic that's around the outside for both ends. This thing is good enough, is built well enough to live in. 100% throwaway. I think the most I spent was going over to Menards. They had these 5 pounds of fasteners, nails, screws, and everything for, remember, $2 or whatever it is. In there, all the sheet metal pan screws that I needed that are the wide pan, shallow drill, shallow like ½ inch, and I think the other ones are 3/8. They were perfect for going through the plastic and just going into the PVC pipe. And so you figure I paid throwaway price for the fasteners. Any of the metal on the inside was basically recycled from what we used before, but since I haven't been able to find that mock metal channel anymore from most sources, we ended up watching for somebody scrapping it out, and I grabbed a bunch from one of the scrap sites, got it for free actually. So the whole thing is pretty much a throwaway. Now the see-through plastic, I gotta say that's where I spent the most money, because the semi-transparent corrugated fiber plastic I used where the glass is the heavier gauge. It actually offers a little bit of screening, which is not a bad thing, because while I could use glass, and I have used glass, and if I had to change this, I probably would go to windows again, only because I can get them for free. But the nice thing about it being a little milky is it actually gives it a little bit of sun barrier. Still gets just as hot as any other greenhouse, and you still need to ventilate, and you should actually put a little fan, I use a solar fan in there. When the sun's out, the fan works. If the sun's not out, the fan doesn't work. It only runs directly off solar. That way, that kind of self-regulates for temperature. Now, otherwise, like I said, minimal amount with the way I've got it insulated right now, and I still have one more layer of insulation to put in. I'd easily put a cot in there, put a little heater unit. In fact, I've got a little wood-burning stove that we've had. It's one of the Swiss portable tent stoves. You could easily live in this thing and not be uncomfortable, not even being close to uncomfortable. So here again, an inexpensive way to build a retreat cabin out in the middle of nowhere that you wouldn't have to worry if somebody thought they really wanted to do something with it. You're not going to cry if anything goes wrong with it, or most people are just going to look at it and just keep going. Not really worth the time. There's nothing to steal. There's nothing to take. Might be vandalism, and that's what duct tape's for. If somebody even put a hole in it with a bullet, it's like it's plastic. It's kind of self-sealing. Just kind of cool. So that's been one of my little projects. Not a big one. It's just part of the many, share time things I did today. But I got the tomato plants out of the way, and the pepper plants are looking happy. And in fact, I moved some of the others up from inside because they're loaded with fruit right now, and moved those into the greenhouse just in case we have a frost or something that just flips here, because it's October, guys, and anything can happen, right, Larry? I mean, anything. So
yeah, we're starting to see 30s here in Indiana. Yesterday we got the first rain of any significance in, probably over 2 months. I mean, it's dry as a bone here, and it dried up today. Even though we had rain yesterday, it's pretty much dried up now, and leaves are coming down, dry as a bone. Yeah, I had to water my garden the last several weeks here. I had to run a hose and do all the watering myself, but it actually came in pretty good this year. Lots of peppers, lots of greens, lots of cabbage, broccoli, that kind of thing. And they're cutting the food off, folks. Everybody's trying to distract you with this election and stuff, and gosh, we're supposed to cheer for the other Epstein-guilty piece of crap that's all for our ISIS 9/11 murdering enemy in Tel Aviv. I don't think so. They're trying to say how much of a gun grabber that Biden is. Well, hey, Trump's the one that passed the bump stock ban. He's the one that pushed the red flag laws with Princess Incest. He's the one that told Dianne Feinstein to take guns first and pass laws later. He's the one that put gun-grabbing Barr in charge, who's not even investigating Hillary or Home Obama. So, no, I'm not real happy with that piece of crap either. But it's amazing how many stories out there are just, saying how wonderful Trump is compared to Biden. It's good cop, bad cop, folks. He's doing exactly the same thing that, the globalists want him to do. He's the one that let 60% of the businesses be destroyed with this phony virus scam, even though they did a practice run on October 2019 called Event 201. Everybody's out there wearing their masks in their own cars or on a motorcycle. The sheep are insane.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, hold on, Larry. You gotta include you're in your car by yourself. You're wearing rubber gloves. You're wearing a clear plastic face shield. You're wearing a dog muzzle mask and probably goggles, which we have several pictures of now. So it's like somebody says, yes, they really do live amongst us. And I have to agree. It's like, I don't really mind. I mean, as far as, okay, if you're going to be, insane, we don't put people in insane asylums anymore. And if they would, they try to put us in insane asylums because we'd be challenging their stupidity and insanity. We know that, okay? But let's point something out. If the world is that terrifying to you, why are you even coming out of the house other than what apparently is some kind of psychosomatic ritual that is purely, it's kind of like the lemmings going over the cliff. On the one hand, you believe that you virtually almost have to be in a 3-layer plastic bubble and that life, is doom. And think about this, in your car. Did you have anybody else in the car today? Well, no. So what's going to happen? Does a corona beer virus develop on your dash and you're just picturing it coming off like the blob in some wave and smacking you in the face or something? Are you fearful that it's going to be shatter the windshield and pass through the car like a sci-fi movie? What? If you're that, and this is neurotic paranoia. We're talking neurotic hypochondriacs with paranoid tendencies. When you see someone like that, or any of these characters, I mean, there's levels of this now. You've got the acquiescing to, the insane, which is wearing the minimal throwaway mask. You have the trying to be chic dog muzzle. That's where you get the black one especially. Larry, you know why they got the black ones, right?
Well, I've got a black one with white letters on it that says, "This is tyranny."
Right. Well, yeah, but you know why you get the black one? The black one is because if you were in a hospital, it would be white. And that way, after the first 3 or 4 times you put it on, it starts to turn brown and has spittle and bacteria on it. You're supposed to wash it. But if it's black, harder than hell to see the bacteria and the phlegm and the other stuff. And besides, it's on the inside, mostly, until it starts to build up and ooze through the other side, mostly. And then, of course, you have the next character that we described. Oh, no, I saw there's something new. I can get a piece of, helmet with a face shield, and I wear my dog muzzle, and then I wear my face shield, and wait a minute, now there's some new, they're steampunk kind of goggles. I can get some really stylish ones. And so I'm going to wear goggles and a face muzzle underneath a face shield with a skull cap with the rubber gloves. Okay.
So
anybody see a sickness here? Does anybody else see a sickness here? That's all I'm asking.
Any change there in Michigan now that the Attorney General has told Whitlis to go stuff it, or?
Well, actually, that's the dog and pony show. You got to remember, we got this queer as a $3 bill AG. Okay, they're in bed together, quite literally, and in fact, they're both 2 peas in a pod. So the only reason they're doing this is to buy time while they still keep telling everybody they're going to persecute and prosecute them, even though they claim that they're not. All of the idiot sticks, all of the parasites at the county level are out threatening businesses about, not enforcing the mask thing, and you've got little monkey-poking backstabber Stasi reporters, people from the population who call up the health services and they go and harass the businesses, and the state hasn't done anything to stop that. So it's a lie. Okay, the AG, that's just that's the usual playing the rubes. The AG is a Fruit Loop, queer as a $3 bill nutcase, okay? Again, just give you an idea, there was only one bar in Michigan allowed to be open. Right down the street from the governor's mansion, there's a queer bar. It is a flaming queer bar. It's the Blue Oyster Bar from Police Academy, okay? It literally is. That's what it is. And then there's the golf course. Now, it's really strange to me, Larry, that there would be a queer bar right next to a golf course, which would tell me that what probably or how is that golf course associated one with the other. And the golf course wasn't shut down for any of the to-do pedos and homosexuals and lesbians or whatever. And that bar, while everybody else, they had the cops out there and they threatened to murder people in their businesses, that bar stayed open the whole time. Of course, it was just down the street from the governor's mansion. So who do you think was going there? And who else do you think? The AG and, of course, its clique. Let's go back to when they had the election and these characters came in. I mentioned them, and you probably can find a picture if you look, Michigan AG accepting election victory. There's a picture. They all wore purple. The whole clique looked like they were in a 1970s or 80s prom outfit. Okay, the whole bunch. But they're all female, except for the males who tried very much to look like females. And then there's the other males, or I should say the females who try to look male to a degree. And then there were the females, or the males trying to look like females, and that was really obvious. But they all had the same color outfit on. They might have gone and bought a prom dress or like a wedding dress company inventory, is what I'm thinking. Something from like a wedding. Oh, well, these are cheap. Oh, wow, and they're purple. Oh, my God, like for sure. And that's how they showed up for for receiving their election confirmation the night of the election. So remember, these are purple is also the color of royalty. Right. Well, the poofta royalty, especially the color of royalty. Well, for everything out there, again, as a reminder, the big thing is that we have a shipwreck going on here, just like we have a shipwreck nationally. And Larry, I don't know about you, but I received my 7th, mail-in ballot. I assume that since I'm not going to use them, that probably they'll still fabricate the votes, and I'll be voting for, even though I'm not. Although I guess that's the only place I'd probably put a vote, because I want to get the war going. I don't want to stop this now. I mean, we need it. We really do. Nothing going to fix this. The voter fraud is so horrific. What's really fascinating to me, and I keep pointing this out, is you don't see a Republican jumping up and addressing this at all.
Hey, Mark.
You find all kinds of Democrats, and they're all telling you all about how y'all need to vote often and vote early and vote often again. But as far as the Republicans go, there isn't anybody talking about putting the brakes on this. We get a caller. Go ahead, jump in there.
Yes, number 4. Have you noticed T-shirt sales going up and up because they have on the T-shirt it says, "No, please take my governor, please." Really? T-shirt saying it.
Well, we've got there's a couple different ones for Michigan here that are like that. I'm sure several of the states are in the same boat, actually. I don't think Pennsylvania is any different. I think it's in bad shape.
Well, how do you know your governor is going by your house down by the road? You hear their Tiger tank squealing wheels of the... She's riding around a Tiger tank now of armored escort.
Well, yeah, that, and again, remember, there's a funny thing about that. I had to point this out to somebody a couple of times this weekend. She actually pissed on the Praetorian Guard here, okay? She cut back the money on the state police. And as I pointed out, I said, okay, we have a sociopath who thinks that she's going to put her boot on the face of humanity or on their necks, right? Well, who does she order to do that? Why the lodge buddy Yamko wearing secret police? The state police, who, by the way, are there because of the War Powers Act. So what did she turn around and do here in the early part of the coronavirus thing? She cut the funding for the state police. Now, this took the state police kind of right off the road. And it's really obvious that not only did they just get off the road, it looked like they just decided they didn't need to do much anything. Now, you see them once in a while, and I'm sure they're helping the federal cops to murder Americans every chance they can, and because they love gun grabbing and they love stealing property out of people's homes and stuff just like any other cop. But as far as showing up, I don't know what kind of motivation they're going to get. I mean, or for what she's going to get and they are going to get from the state police, considering how they peed on them. So that's the funny twist of the many aspects. This is what, like I said, these neurotic hypochondriacs with paranoid tendencies also quite psychotic in nature. And eclectic, to say the least, because it's like, you will follow my orders. Well, there's nobody left to follow your orders, sir. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? I want them dead. I want them all dead. I get the gun. I get the gun owners. Get the people. Get them. It's like, well, but sir, you cut the funding and you took a lot of them off the job, so to speak. I don't think they're highly motivated now. If you're going to have rape, kill, pillage, and burn soldiers, you've got to give them carte blanche
And money.
Yeah, and she hasn't done that. She mucked up, and I do believe that they realize this too. I mean, she does have the Praetorian Guard, I'm sure, protecting her, but I don't know how many would jump in front of her to save, to stop a bullet. I'm sure there's one or two she slept with that would. I mean, because that's the only way she's keeping them. Kind of like the Cleopatra syndrome,
Well, to fool the general public and the dumb sheep that might want to try to take her, she has all her cops behind her, but they're all CGI in the green screen, making her look like she's got thousands of cops when she's only got the one.
Well, nobody wants. See, that's the other thing. As soon as they said somebody's going to nobody was going to kidnap her. Nobody wants her. Two things I'm going to tell you from our side: nobody's going to feed any of these fools. Yeah. The sad part is when I say we're not going to take them, you just figure out the math, because we don't plan on feeding the other side. But it's interesting that again, they wouldn't want her back.
She needs to go on the astronaut program to the moon, Alice.
Yeah, it'd be like, what do you mean? How much will you pay us to take her back? No, you've got to. You need to pay us. No, you got to pay us. Otherwise, you can keep her. Have you been around her for any period of time? Yeah, I know. And I think that's where the problem is. That this is why, to a degree, they're all pumped up about thinking they want to crash everything. I mean, even the ring knockers are pumping this right now. But in reality, the more you look at this, everybody's looking at the management as the problem, not the rank and file organic sandbag Antifa. We can wipe them out in a pretty good period of time. Well, they're still dangerous. Don't you ever make a mistake about that. But pretty much they can be handled. The management responsible is what everybody's looking at, and absolutely everybody hates.
Well, it's going to be fun to see. You were talking about Dune the other day. I think it was Dune, where you only caught the slow ones. When they shut the door, the super elites, the other masters that didn't get a chance to get past the door are going to be on the outside. Let me in, and they're the
scratching.
Slow ones.
Yeah, the scratching at the door with their fingernails, right? Like a cat trying to hide kitty, in a kitty litter box, right? Mm-hmm. Let me in. Let me in. We had a deal. We had a. Oh. And wait a minute, there's another one over there. No, I wasn't with him. I wasn't scratching at the door. Yeah, but you kept talking on the microphone there, the one built on the wall. I heard you whispering. You wanted in too. You just figured we wouldn't notice you. Plop.
I got one other thing, and I'm going to let you go. It's just driving me crazy because I'm a poor speller. How do you spell that word you were talking about, like a CERN that you put into the ground to hide your supplies and stuff?
Oh, Cairn.
Cairn.
Yeah,
Cairn.
it's with a C. Cairn. C-A-R-N. Cairn? No, C-A-I-R-N. Cairn.
Okay.
C-A-I-R-N. Or cash. Cash will get you the same. But a Cairn or Cairn, depending on who you're with, traditionally would be more. A cache can be, of course, buried. Like you dig a hole quick, cover it up. And caching can be done in many different ways, from a tree, from underwater, whatever. Cairns, on the other hand, or cairns, are typically more like a mummy's tomb. But there's no entrance. You actually have to re-excavate to get to them. An example of a cairn that I've talked about, or a technique with coal, for instance, you do the same thing. If I were anybody, if you're listening out there and you can buy coal, you can probably buy coal where you are. What I do is go get myself whatever. I go to a Facebook Marketplace and look for cheap lumber. Go get a bunch of pallets. Take the pallets, use the oak for the base. You want to still make it solid, so you want to put crossboards over the base, but you make sturdy walls out of 2x6, 2x4. You sculpt into the side of a hill. Put a baseboard down below of Wollmanize would really be great. And here's the thing: even if it's old deck board Wollmanize that somebody deinstalled, that would be perfect because it'd be free. Take all of it they've got, Take, for instance, take the pallets. Now you want to lay the pallets down after you've dug the size excavation you need for the half-ton or 1 ton of coal. And then what you do is you do a 3-sided wall initially, back obviously heavily reinforced, but you dig it in just enough that you can bank it all the way around with the boards, okay? And then have them bring the coal in, drop it right there, and then settle it so that you fill in all the spaces and, flatten it out. Guesstimate what your volume is going to be, build to volume. Now, if you want to bring some more in, if you show the guy, see what I'm doing? Yep. You see how much coal I need? Yep. He'll know. The guy will go load up what you need. He'll come back, and then you could fill in the difference to the top of your wood wall, whatever you built. After you do that, board in the front, board in the top, solid, bury that sucker right where it is. That coal's been there for 1 million years. We don't know how long it's been there. We don't know what the age of the anthracite that you're probably using. But what would really be cool is you come back 100 years, or if you came back 4 years from now, let's say that you start needing coal, you decide you're going to actually use it. Guess what? It'd be sitting right there, and there's nothing that'll happen to it. Coal is one of the most efficient fuels for everything from smelting to house heating to even cooking as needed, because remember, all you need is a hot plate. So, it's a cheap, easy way. Now that would be a cairn that you would be, would be building. It would be sealed. Then you'd bury it so it can't even be seen. You wouldn't even know it's there. And the idea is to, make it look like the terrain if at all possible. So you sculpt back in far enough that you actually work into the hill if you can. And by volume, it's purely a matter of what can you afford. I know a lot of guys do pickings, because there's places where they have dropped coal, and they'll be basically filler coal or thumb coal that is perfect for the kind of work we're talking about. And you can get it by the 5-gallon buckets all day, where you dig it up, you just excavate. I can go over beside the property, on the other side of my property here. In the old farm, we had a foundry. They dropped coal over there behind the old barns. I can go over there in about 10 minutes and fill a 5-gallon pail with coal. It's just all through it's spread out, because they pushed it this way and they pushed it that way and they moved it, and the coal pile was probably, fairly big at one time, smaller later, and they never went to the bottom. So there's coal all over the place sitting there, and it's not naturally occurring here. It's just, man dropped. So it's an efficient fuel. And it's another thing that can be done with a cairn, just like caching barrels. When you do a larger platform like that, again, the idea is that you're still building for the long term, but you're probably not going to be that deep in time before you'll be drawing from it. Example is when you're building a cairn. Let's say that I was building up from unconventional to paraconventional, aiming towards the conventional campaign, finally fighting like the enemy, being able to. The purpose behind these is to build up caches. In fact, it's like Dune. What he did. Remember what the Fremen were doing in Dune with the water?
Yep.
Until they could get to a certain point where they would reach the crux or the shift in potential, and then they could move. Think the same way with tactical support technology. You're accumulating and you continue to accumulate, but you also tactically disperse. That way you can't drop a bomb on one place. See, we don't want to do the reverse of what we just succeeded in doing here in the last year. Guys, how easy is it to get ammo right now? Not very. Why? Everybody bought it, right? Now, guess what we just had happen? The best damn thing that could happen before a war. The entire stock and inventory of a critical tactical item came out of the warehouses where it was centrally located, came out of the stores, which are the retail elements, which are still very concentrated. There's only about 42,000 locations that are at the tactical retail end. That's how you got to think of it, like tactical. Retail is tactical, or that they'd have to shut down, and most of them have very little supply. So the big thing is to cut off their suppliers or their deep supplier manufacturer. What we've done is we've taken the entire combat tactical inventory and spread it out over the whole country. We don't want to then turn around and start re-centralizing it so it becomes the same kind of target of opportunity. So we're better off with the individual and groups of people having vast tactical inventory where the rubber/the infantry meet the road, which is what's happened. But you still need to disperse it. And again, Cairn is, well, it's still it's an overlap. Cache or Cairn, the word is interchangeable, really. But you do more when you're building the other. Combat engineers have a variety of different solutions based on exactly what I'm describing. If you look at either fortifications or what is the new one, developments, whatever the title for the, they came up with a goofy title. Just leave it fortifications and be done with it. But that's not what its name is now. And basically, it's how to build. And it's not only that, but how to build with the most common materials that show up on the battlefield all on their own. Pallets, ammo cans, artillery shells, because when you fire a shell, they typically don't reload them, guys. Now, we would. There's an example of something where if I didn't have the knowledge, let me point out every artillery shell is a mortar. Okay, look up trench mortar, World War I. Trench mortar, World War I. Trench mortar, World War I. The infantry built just as many homemade mortars on the front. In fact, probably a correction, 10 times as many homemade mortars were made on the front lines as were brought over as manufactured mortars from the factories in France and England or from the United States.
Sewer pipe guns, too.
Yeah. So, again, go ahead. I'm sorry, please. Go right ahead.
I'm talking about building, and I've been wanting to talk to you about this a long time. The DEW weapons out west, and I'm looking at what burns and what doesn't. I'm looking at road guardrails burning, but the wood isn't burning, and the nails going through the wood starts to fire in the posts in the ground. And it looks like everything with metal makes the ions and stuff get extremely hot and move around. And I'm looking at this aircrete as a way to insulate and build with for buildings for anti-DEW weapons.
Yes. Oh, you know what? Here's something that gets me, and I've always argued this. You know, if you listen for a period of time, two things that I can never understand. If I'm in Tornado Alley, I'm not the little piggy who's going to replace my house of sticks with a house of sticks. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If I were in that situation out there, the first thing that I'd look at is, what made it and what didn't? Well, look around and see what buildings are still at least kind of standing there. Oh, look, cement block. Oh, look, poured concrete. Oh, look. Now what would I do if I were, and I'm building like this right now. I grossly overbuild everything I'm doing now. I have been for quite some time. When I build sidewalls on structures, I take 2x6s, 2x10s, 2x4s, and horizontally lay them and then just keep, stacking. I go to the construction sites where they're getting rid of all the 2x4, the scab parts. Yep. You get 10-footers, 15-footers, 3-footers, 2-foot pieces. Well, all of my horizontal wall is 2x, period. All of the outer walls are 2x6, period. But they're reinforced vertically by using a horizontal, like a log stack. The baseboard, typically I use Woolmanized because, needless to say, I got it. It's free. Use Woolmanized for the first 20 inches or so simply because that's where all the moisture builds up. But then, but it can be 2x4s, 2x12s, 2x10s, and I'll run a whole run of 10. Then
if you can put it in the microwave and it sparks, that's what you don't want in your house.
Right.
So you have to build like the Amish with wooden pins and plastic pins.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I'll see on that subject. I just went through all these tools that I've been accumulating, and one of the things I always grab is the hand augers and all of the traditional auger tools. And that's one of the things I was taught to do when I was, it was back in the trades years ago when I was young. And it's one of those things where, remember, you don't throw out any broom handles for that reason. Use broom handle, knock a broom handle, cut it to whatever your depth. Well, what you do is you don't cut it until after you drive it through. But when you run your pinholes, you do your Lincoln log, connectors where you have the two overlapping, teeth, between the two, beams. Mm-hmm. Run your hole, run your rod through, extend it beyond, then take your cutoff saw, whack off the excess, and you can also do what's called spleening, which is where you take, there's a tool, looks kind of like a spud, like a spud chisel. and you smack the end to broaden the caps on either end, the head. It doesn't mushroom it out. What it does is expands it a little bit. You just tap. This is an art, but you tap that. So another way to take a lesser wood and give it a little more strength, and also to tighten it up once it's in the fixture, once it's where it belongs.
So you also have the glues to use. In the microwave, the glass plate doesn't burn, and the plastic, if it's the right kind of plastic, doesn't melt. And that's what people are going to have to, if they're going to rebuild, they're going to have to build a microwavable proof house. So
the cement is the first. Aluminum. Yeah, the cement would be the first thing that I seriously. I mean, come on, limestone is everywhere, and well, not limestone, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Block is everywhere. And I'd just be scavenging everything I could, and if it wouldn't be that, it'd be cement and stone. Because that, again, is, natural materials. Not only that, but remember absorption with whatever they're doing here. Calorie displacement is the other thing, because any structure like that, it also works as a heat sink.
Right.
In other words, if it's building up calories, it's pushing, its foundation. You're literally drawing the material. Through the material is going to take a certain amount of whatever built up energy and drive it and ground it.
Right.
Which is cool. I mean, exactly what you want. But
that's what
I was
thinking.
You got the right idea. That number one,
rammed earth and giant, heavy grounding rods that go deep.
Another thing on that, remember that this kind of gets into this is the battlefield argument for a number of different problems, because you see we're dealing with something that once it becomes less useful, it doesn't become novel and applied or used as often. And that's one of the things is, they can use it for the moment, but if everybody starts to perceive the threat, then there's a change or a significant change in, again, how you build. Because, again, if some people are taking it seriously, then that totally changes or devalues the weapon system. But then they go back to other wicked, evil, conventional things. However, here's something to think about. If I'm building concrete or, again, like you said, impacted earth, which is recommended, if you're going to build a structure, you want to do rubble construction. You want to do rubble foundation and rubble construction for the walls. And what that is, what we call a brick wall today, guys, isn't a brick wall. That's a fascia wall, okay? If you look at traditional real brick buildings, they're interlocked with not only a run up and down, one line, but rather interlocking runs, the equivalent to 3 or 4 deep. But they're interwoven. That's why a lot of these old buildings, I don't know if you remember in the tornado belts, somebody was commenting on this one building that was the designated secure building in the area because it was in Oklahoma, flatter than a pancake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, why is that one? Well, I know why, because I looked right at it. I said, because it's probably from the 1880s or 1890s, and number one, it has a 3-foot brick wall. That's not flat laid brick side by side by side. That is an interlocking brick grid. It's a lattice. Okay, and then on top of that, here's what they did. They didn't just go solid brick. If it's that thick, there are 3 runs of brick interlocked on the outside. There's an airspace of about 1.5 feet in the middle. Then there's 3 runs on the inside interlocked, and of course at the end caps they're interlocked and they're also bridged at different points down the wall. Well, then that impacted earth idea you just mentioned, guys, any mortar, any chunks of rock, any bits of pebbles, any limestone gravel, any pea gravel, anything you could find, once you let the cement set, or the brick set, what you do is you start pouring the rubble in and you impact it. Remember they used to have these drivers that were like a vertical hammer, but they were just a big square? You have a human version that you can use for work if you're working cement or patios. Mm-hmm. Well, they made a machine version, a Donkey John type thing, and all its purpose was to impact and drive down and virtually create a friction positive aggregate layer after layer after layer after layer after layer. And that's why that building has survived almost a direct hit from an artillery round. They don't talk about that. Rubble construction, the dominant rubble construction of the best era is from the post-Civil War, actually the end of the Civil War, because the brick changed. The quality of the brick changed. Red clay brick was replaced more with kiln brick. because of the big fires we did where we burned down the South. That actually changed the quality of the buildings down there real quick, by the way. Most people don't realize that. But we went to ceramicized brick, or speed block, as it was called. And that's another material that is still out there today. You'll find it, where you'll find speed block is in elevator wells. And when you'll notice it's not a regular brick. It's actually a very unique, it's a corrugated brick. But it's also striated in that it actually has hollows in the middle of it. The interesting thing about either of these is that, again, you incorporate that with the rubble construction, and what you have is a compressible building that literally you can't tear down. The rubble construction was dominant through to the 20s and 30s at least, and there's still buildings that are made on occasion the right way. Those are usually your civil defense buildings. That's why do they have that old building as the civil defense building in a big city? Well, because the engineers know how that building is made. And unlike, say, the World Trade Center, which was, fabricated from components that were, as they acknowledge, if you watch how it was built, remember that many of these older buildings, virtually the foundation, here's another part you need to add to this. The rubble construction that you see, that I'm talking about, doesn't just go up the walls. When you see a skyscraper, this is fascinating science, understand that there is a mimic of that skyscraper to the same height underground. How many people knew that? The pylons that hold a building like that up have to go down almost an equal comparable depth and in volume to the design and layout of the upper superstructure of the building. Now, when they were pylon construction, which is what they do now, they do driver pylon. Well, actually, they've done that for years. You have a lot of the old buildings in Detroit or in New York or in anywhere farther east you go. They're older. There are buildings that were built 160, 170 years ago that are wood pilings. Now, when they went to rubble construction, they had to dig down farther, but they still maintain the same interlocking systems to build that rubble construction. So we're talking a fortress that when it gets hit, okay, kind of like, you wish in the medieval days they wish they had these. You can hit it with a wrecking ball that's as big as 2 Ford vans, only solid steel. And all you're going to do is compress the rubble on itself, and it won't go anywhere. You have to virtually pick the building apart like you put it together from the very, very top to the bottom. A lot of companies can go into newer buildings and they just hit it with a ball sideways and half the building is coming down. Many times young deconstruction companies, okay, make the foolish mistake of bidding on an older building like that and have no clue what they're looking at. They'll have a bid for a contract to destroy the building in a month, and 4 months later they're still beating at the wall because they haven't figured out they're not doing anything. That's how tough rubble construction is. So if we don't have to even reinvent, we just have to pay attention to what somebody else already figured out. And the only reason they don't do it is because it's time consuming. Because when you're done, you've built a building that'll be good for 100, 150, even up to 200 years if it was maintained. And since you have better materials, the timeline to survivability of the building would be extended dramatically. And the big shift is going from the ceramic clay coming through, moving forward to the different types of glacier, that we have now, the different types of kiln brick that we use. They're more brittle in some ways, but not that much because of the design. They're actually pretty strong. And once they're integrated the way we're talking about, sky's the limit. I mean, you'd be an idiot to tear it down, but there are plenty of idiots in this country.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to let you go, but I got one last comment. I think that you really will like it since you like building and history and things like that. You've heard of the Tartarians?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a new book out about them, and it's, if you go over to a website called A Plain Truth with the number 5 at the end of it, A Plain Truth number 5. This gentleman has released a book on it, and it's massive on what he has, and he shows how the spears on top of these Tartarian things were pulling energy out of the air. For way back then, they had flying blimps and all this other stuff, supposedly, but it looks literally fascinating how they made that whole society disappear. Well,
actually, what's funny? This is kind of like the Khazars. They'll do this with the Tartars. They say, well, they never existed. That's all. They're trying to do that right now. They really are.
Yeah.
Larry, I don't know if you've seen any of this.
Well, it's interesting that this popped up and the mud floods popped up and all this stuff after the Mandela effect started happening. All of a sudden, this Tartar history popped up where, Nikola Tesla may have been tied in with these guys, and I've seen what he's talking about, where they're saying that these buildings existed in Chicago and the United States, and they've covered all that up, and there's a lot of things that just suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and that's one of them is the new Tartar history and the the mud.
Well, wait a minute.
flood.
Okay, let's remember something before we're going to find out. This is going to lead up to this, guys. Where did tartar sauce come from? If nothing else, we all remember this, right? Have you not eaten tartar sauce at some time in your life? I know I have. Okay, just something to think about. Okay, so where did tartar sauce come from? Well, obviously there were the Tartars, and they weren't just sauce specialists, right? Just something to think about there. That's why I brought that up. It's like, and everybody knows about the Tartars. Okay, we did. In fact, what's interesting about this is, as you pointed out, there's. I guess let me put it this way. If you ask anybody, what's north of Iran? Here's a way to do this. What is north of Iran? What country is north of Iran? What country is east of Romania? Now here, let's go the other direction. What country is west of China? What country is south of Russia? Do you know what I just mapped out for you guys? A big hole in the earth. And I ain't talking flat earth. I'm talking not wanting you to think topographically about a place on the planet. Why? What's west of China? What's
Russia.
East of Romania and Bulgaria? I mean, come on, that's the ones people you at least remember. Bulgaria's there somewhere, right?
Yep.
Now, you know where Russia is. What's south of Russia?
Kind of China. South.
Yeah. Well, that's the far, far end of China. I'm talking about, let's go straight south of Moscow. Let's go, and by the way, it's the stands. It's Kazakhstan, all the rest of the stands, as they used to call them. And then don't forget the Caucasus. And remember, there's a couple of wars we fought there before 1900. Every once in a while they do mention them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those Crimean Wars, I say. Well, old Chauncey there was with the Fourth Regulars in the Crimean Wars. Now, what is the Crimea? Well, that's one we'll talk about a little bit, but not much. Okay, so why is it they don't discuss? It's kind of like, here's another one. How about Northwest Africa? Name for me anything that you know about south of Madagascar. Oh no, forgive me. South of Morocco and north of, say, Nigeria, northwest of Nigeria. What's going on over there? There's a big part of Africa right there. Why is it we don't hear anything about it? It exists. I know it does. I can find it on the map.
Well, they don't want you to know the truth about anything. It's all lies, but...
Well, if you do, it's like, here's an interesting thing, because I don't disagree with all the neat stuff, but it's like, okay, for our closing, we're almost done here at the end of the day. All of you. Larry, you can have some fun. Guys, go look at where the Ohio and the Mississippi come together. There's a town that starts with an M in Tennessee. What's the name of that? What is it? Something?
Memphis?
Memphis? Is there another Memphis on the planet?
Egypt, right?
Memphis, Egypt. Now, here's something you can have some fun with, because I just gave you some benchmarks. Line up the Nile, and by the way, the Euphrates and all these. There's all kinds of fun rivers going to pop up here. But line up, find Memphis over there, then find Memphis and take a little tracer and lay one over the other, and then look at where certain cities in the United States show up when they, and by the way, look at their names. Now I'm going to say look at Egypt first, and then come over here and lay the map of Egypt on the area using Memphis, of the two Memphises as your reference, and then scratch your head and go, That's why that area is called, where the Ohio and the Mississippi come together. That area, the newspapers, Little Egypt Press, Now, who put that all together, people? Because that didn't take a little effort. When you look on the map and you compare notes, I think that's rather fascinating. Oh, yay, oh, yay, oh, yay. Don't forget, those guys wearing aprons, there's a plan.
Yep.
Well, we got to go. Larry, you've been so patient, sir. God bless our republic.
That's eternal to the New World Order.
We shall prevail, ladies and gentlemen. The empire is on the run.
We're on the march.
Both day and night.
Both doing the...
Why
That's
is
right.
that
Thank you.
pyramid on the back of the dollar bill?
That's right. Pay attention. Hey, that's why they don't change the dollar bill, do they, Larry?
Nope.
Guys, they changed the 5, they changed the 10, they changed the 20, but they didn't touch the $1 bill.
Get some $2 bills.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, we've got a bank that'll do it for us. Guys, we're going to get out of the way, but thank you all for your input. Appreciate and again, also, all the other help today and last weekend with Dave Stone and the family. It made a difference. God bless. Ed taking over. We'll be back tomorrow.